Shabbat Shalom. I was recently listening to a podcast with New York Times columnist Frank Bruni, who was speaking about his experience teaching undergraduates at Duke. Reflecting on how they responded to the aftermath of October 7th, he said his students felt a lot of pressure to say something on social media so they'd seem awake, alert, and present, even though they didn't fully understand or grasp the enormity of the situation. Many of them deferred to others who seemed to have clear and strong opinions. They said they reposted or mimicked postings of others, in part as a way to align with people they admired, wanted to be friends with, or were already friends with. In other words, they posted to some extent to benefit socially, even if they were unsure if what they posted was true. Furthermore, in class discussions, they confessed that since they posted their opinions, they read news in a way that would convince them that what they posted was correct. They found themselves reading the news as if through a filter, in order to confirm that what they had posted was right, in order to prove that their initial reflexive position was not a foolish one, but a righteous one. Bruni states, and so they did what all the adults in their lives, let's be frank, do as well. And they began to curate and filter information to affirm what they decided to believe. This rings so true to me. How many of us say something and then curate and filter information in order to support our position, to prove we are right? People often assert a position when they don't actually know all that much about a situation. They react to an initial perception of what they think is going on, or they repost and replicate others' opinions, rather than diving into learning about facts and complexities of the situation of Gaza and Israel. Social media has exacerbated this situation, giving voice to reductionist and simplistic statements. We are doing ourselves and each other a great disservice when we cling to our knee-jerk reactions and spread them far and wide. We undermine ourselves. We actually need to step back and say, we don't understand. We don't know. It is only from this position of admitting to not knowing that we can be open to seeking a fuller truth. I am reminded of Rashi, one of the most revered sages in all of Jewish history. Rashi wrote comprehensive commentaries on the Torah and the Talmud. So revered are his commentaries that they are simply referred to as the Rashi. We often say, what is the Rashi on this verse or that verse? There is a strange occurrence when you look at the Rashi on Genesis chapter 28, verse 5, commenting on a repetition in the text. It says that Rebekah is the mother of Jacob and Esau at a point in the story when this is already well known. So why the repetition of this information? Typically, when Torah repeats something, our sages have a lot to say about why. But in this case, Rashi commented, I do not know what the addition of these words is intended to tell us. Rashi, one of the great sages of all time, says, I do not know what this teaches us. Moreover, this declaration of uncertainty was recorded and passed down from generation to generation for 1,000 years. Rashi models an important character trait, that of humility. In Berakhot, we read, teach your tongue to say, I do not know. This is an important Jewish value. And yet, it is so hard to admit that we don't know. It's very challenging to sit in a place of reserve and uncertainty. The passage from Berakhot goes on to say, "Teach your tongue to say, 'I do not know,' lest you become entangled in a web of deceit." How many falsehoods have been spoken to cover ignorance? How far do these deceptions go? How many lives are affected? In our current moment, we see many people fighting for a cause they don't understand. There are plenty who protest with hate and malevolence, and their declarations are anti-Zionist and anti-Semitic. Yet, as we learned from Frank Rooney's discussion, some, at least, are posturing in order to align themselves with a social group. Quite a number do not even really know what they are saying when they support the actions of Hamas, believing that their position is in sync with liberal values. When they shout from the river to the sea, they have no idea which river or which sea or what this statement even means. When they demand intifada, they think they are asking for justice, not understanding the terror and violence behind the call. And some who join in these groups are doing it in the name of Judaism. We all know stories of Jews fighting for BDS, thinking they know all the answers. Another perspective on the Berakhot text says that we should teach our tongue to say, "I do not know," in order to signal to all those around us that there is room for uncertainty, to not be so convinced that we know it all. Judaism embraces taking a stance of not knowing, engendering humility, being okay with saying, "I was wrong. I made a mistake. I didn't know." To those who are clinging to narrow ideas of truth, cloaked in ignorance, if you find yourselves posting without really knowing or reflexively aligning yourself with the opinions of others, I implore you, take a step back and gain some self-awareness. Look at your Jewish brothers and sisters and see their pain. Be courageous enough to say, "I was wrong. I didn't know." We are currently reading a section of Torah in which the Israelites are making their way from Egypt, Mitzrayim, a narrow place. We were slaves in Mitzrayim, slaves of the narrows. And when we put ourselves into narrowness of thought, we become enslaved to those thoughts. We become slaves in narrow places, aligned with resentment and conflict, which leads to hate and rage. But when we embrace uncertainty, we unclench from the narrow places. This starts with having the strength, the courage to admit, "I don't know." It is only when we make room for uncertainty we open ourselves to truth.